thinking about an annual business update, it's kind of axiomatic that Groton is a very variegated town, not only with the districts, okay, but also with the economy. If you think about it, to the far west, we have our largest 3 employers, and that's a different dynamic. If you move a little bit over, we get the city of Groton with their dynamics and their local economy. We have an airport with a little industrial area around it, one of only 5 general aviation airports in the entire state, and we have one of them right here. And hopefully a lot of nice things will happen as a result of that. Then we have our commercial corridor, Route 1, Long Hill Road, et cetera. And then finally, when you get all the way over to Mystic, that's a different dynamic, of course, with tourism. And also we have what we call our central industrial corridor, kind of like North Road, Flanders Road, and different dynamics there. So we said, we want to bring in speakers this year that are knowledgeable and can speak to those different areas, and hopefully we can kind of get this whole thing to hang together and what Groton's all about. The format's going to be the speakers are going to come up, they'll have a little monologue session, prepared speech, but we really want to gear up to a Q&A session, okay? So after they all speak, we want to turn it over to you on the floor, ask your questions, take it where you want it to go, what you want to know about, okay? So think about, as you listen to them, jot your questions down. We're going to have a good interactive session as soon as that's done. We're going to start off with Mystic, only because our speaker today has to run off to another commitment, and that's going to be Todd Brady. And Todd has lived in Mystic since 2009. He's worked the area since 1989. He's a graduate of Colgate University and Cornell Law School. He's worked in real estate developer and construction manager in a wide variety of projects all over the Eastern Seaboard. And locally, he's affiliated with Factory Square in Mystic. He's also co-president and trustee of the Mystic Noank Library, a trustee of the Mystic Arts Center, a board member of Downtown Mystic Merchants, and secretary of the Groton Historic District Commission. So Todd, if you don't mind coming up here and filling us in.
Thanks, Al. And in the interest of full disclosure, I should tell you that I'm basically a tennis player, but I play golf twice a year. And one of the days I play is the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend in the State Bluff Go Fish Golf Tournament. So it's another appointment, but it's kind of a pleasurable one. So, Al asked me to address a number of issues. I will address some of them, but the main purpose for me coming here speaking, I think, is to talk about economic development and talk about it in the context of planning and development and the approval process in Mystic, and most of my comments apply equally throughout the town of Groton. So I won't comment on what the tourism market looks like for the coming summer because I'm a real estate investor and landlord, and I really don't know, but you can ask me in October and maybe I'll have an answer. What I want to discuss in part, there's bad news and there's good news, so we'll start with the bad news. And Al asked me to comment on the Central Hall project, which is in the center of downtown Mystic. It's still vacant, the building has not been built. And I want to discuss that in the context of the approval process. That building burned down before 9/11, 14 years ago. At the time, Governor Rowland came down and said that we would have the building up and running in 9 months. Maybe if we'd used the contractors that worked on his lake house, that might have happened, but that didn't. So it's been a long and painful process. The current owners purchased the property in 2004, and they received final approvals in 2014. They spent a year and a half or so in front of the Historic District Commission. They spent 8 months in front of the Zoning Commission. They spent 7 months in front of the Planning Commission in the initial phase. Groton is unique in that it is one of 3 towns in southeastern Connecticut that still has separate zoning and planning commissions. Of course, Groton is unique in that it has multiple fire departments, police chiefs, zoning, everything. I think at least as regards planning and zoning, it might be a good idea to put them together because over the ensuing 10 years, The developers bounce back and forth from the, the zoning approval for special permit, site plan approval to planning. Then one of these things would run out. They'd go through a series of technical specifications and stipulations from the town planning staff, try to comply with those. When the streetscape project got started, they overpoured the footings for the sidewalk, which caused the building to rotate, which interfered with the site plan. The point is that this went on forever. Who's to blame is really not irrelevant at this point. I think the important thing is to look at what happened there and to say, what can we do to make this better? And I think we can make it a lot better if we put our heads together in that regard. The other thing I want to talk about regarding downtown Mystic is parking. Everybody in Mystic talks about parking. I think that the parking issue in Mystic is more a perceived issue than an actual one. The Mystic Art Center parking lot is very rarely ever full. But if you want to open a business in Mystic, you have to show that you have the requisite amount of parking. And I'll use myself as an example as one of the owners of Factory Square. I have to have 141 parking spaces in order to comply with zoning. I have 30 on my property. I have to rent 111 spaces, and I do so from the Mystic Art Center, of which, as Al said, I'm a member of the board. 17 years ago, I paid $14,000 for that privilege. Today, I pay $60,000. And the irony in that is that other than some overflow from the apartments that I own that don't have enough parking on site, if you want to actually use those spaces, you have to pay again. So I'm paying $60,000 a year to show the zoning authorities that I have the parking that I need to actually park, but I can't use it unless I pay again. I have a stack of proximity cards in my office to prove that. Maybe I should sell them. I don't know. But the point is it doesn't make a lot of sense, because if I went and I bought the Azoo restaurant in downtown Mystic, I would have no parking requirements because I'm grandfathered in. If I bought Dexter Jewelers next door and I tried to open a business or a restaurant, I would have to have the requisite parking. What's the solution to this? One of them is maybe to have metered parking to level the playing field between the Mystic Arts Center and downtown Mystic. As a former resident of West Hartford, if you want to go to West Hartford Center, you pay to park. No one blinks an eye at it. I don't know if it would work as well around here. Another possible solution is structured parking, some kind of a parking facility. We did look at it at our marina, but it's very expensive to do that kind of thing. It would have to be a public-private initiative. The other solution is to get rid of the parking requirements, because I don't think that they're relevant. I don't think that we need them. If people want to come to downtown Mystic, they will find a place to park. And the one other thing is I think you have to look to the future, because there's a freight train coming down the tracks, and it's called the driverless car, and it is going to very much change how we live. And if you don't think it's coming that soon, I think you don't know a lot about companies like Google, Apple, Tesla, and all the automotive manufacturers. It's coming. There's a Google car driving across the country now with nobody driving it but the computer. Your smartphone that you carry in your pocket has more computing power than the Cray supercomputer. I mean, it's going to happen. And when it happens, it means that when you get up in the morning, if you want to, you can get into your car and it will take you to work, or a car will be there to take you to work, and after it drops you off, it will leave. And by leaving, that means it won't have to park, or it can park in a remote location. The elderly will be able to stay in their homes longer because they won't endanger themselves or others by getting behind the wheel. When it gets ubiquitous and widespread, it could be the end of DUIs because people won't be driving. And I think we have to think about that when we talk about planning for the future and what the future holds for us and what we need with parking. With regard to the approval process and how long it can take to get an approval in Groton, and that kind of a thing is bad for business. It's bad for economic development because developers talk and lawyers talk, and if they know that a town is very difficult to get approvals in, they will avoid that town. And I think we have seen very little significant development in Groton in the last 7 years. Some of it's the financial crisis, some of it's the declining population, but some of it is how hard it is to get approvals. And it is possible to change that. The Historic District Commission, on which I now sit, on which I have appeared before probably 50 times in my real estate career in Mystic, had morphed very much over the last 10 years. I watched it change from a fairly reasonable body to an entity that made it very difficult for people to make changes to their homes or their businesses. I saw people in tears at those meetings. I saw people go up with their hands shaking. And a lot of it, I think, is attributable to the fact that they have become preservationists. The state standard for historic district commissions is that what you build there not be incongruous with the rest of the architectural heritage that surrounds it. And Mystic is a beautiful town, and a lot of it is a function of its historic character. And it's important to preserve that. But that doesn't mean that you can't make people make changes. Architecture is a dynamic process. It changes. I mean, who would have thought that Philip Johnson's glass house in Fairfield County would one day go on the National Register of Historic Buildings? Today's contemporary building is tomorrow's historic building. But I would submit to you that in the last 30 years, there has been no building built in Mystic, in the historic district, that will ever attain any historical significance of its own. And that's because they're copies. What they let you build in Mystic was they let you build a copy of something that was built in the 1700s or the 1800s. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. So about 4 years ago, a group of frustrated architects, real estate developers, and interested citizens in town got together, and we prepared a letter that we presented to the town council, presenting our concerns about the Historic Commission, how it had become overly onerous, how it was hindering development. And the town council heard what we said. They refused to appoint one of the members who was up for renewal, and we then organized a meeting that was moderated by Senator Andrew Maynard. 150 people attended at the Mystic Arts Center. At that meeting, one person spoke in favor of how the Historic District Commission was currently handling its activities. Another guy spoke about how he tried to get his roof raised in his garage for his bathroom so he could stand up straight in his shower, and how he'd been turned down and sent packing. In the ensuing 9 months, every member of the Historic District Commission resigned. The Historic District Commission is fully reconstituted. We're a very different organization now. We know what we have to do. We're preserving the character of the town, but we do our business efficiently and quickly. You come in to a preliminary hearing, we listen to you, we give you some advice, you come back for a public hearing, you're gone, you're done, you're out. Not 8 months, not 9 months, not 10 months, not 10 years. And that's the way it's supposed to work. And that's the way it has to work if we're going to foster economic development in this town. The other good news has to do with planning and the planning role. My daughter recently got her master's in urban planning, and we had a lot of philosophical discussions about what's the role of a planning department? What's the role of a planner? Is it to regulate or is it to innovate? Clearly it's both. In the past 10 years, I think the planning department has spent a lot more time on regulation and very little time on innovation and on forward thinking and on advancing development in town. We have a new planning director of planning in Groton, and his name is Jonathan Reiner. He comes from the town of North Kingston, Rhode Island, where he spent the last 9 years. When he went to North Kingston had another name. It was called No Kingston, because it was a very tough place to do business. And in the ensuing 9 years, he instituted a number of very innovative and forward-thinking ideas. Things like swapping density from areas you want to maintain as open space, and transfer them to areas of greater density. And so you purchase those. So if a farmer's got 100 acres and he's got the right to build a 100-lot subdivision, you can buy some of those units and you can transfer them to a place where the density won't affect the overall character of the community. I went to see him a couple of weeks ago to talk about a piece of property I own, and one of the first things he said after he heard my ideas was, "What can we do to help make this happen?" I just about fell out of my chair. That has not happened in Groton in the last 10 to 20 years. And it's really important it's happening now. The town of Groton has commissioned a study, both a market analysis and a zoning audit that is ongoing. They're having a series of meetings, upcoming meetings. The public is invited. They intend to examine what can be done to increase the economic development in this town, and also a full review of our zoning ordinances. I mean, I'm a smart guy, I'm a trained lawyer. I could sit down and I could write up a number of rules to govern everything. I could mandate that you have handrails on sidewalks so you don't have slip and falls. We have to be reasonable about this kind of thing. We have to be progressive. We have to think outside the box. This is a great town. It's on the water. It's got rail transportation. It's got easy highway access. It's got a number of major employers. It's got the Navy base. It's a big tourism town, and tourism is a huge part of downtown Mystic and how it operates and how it can thrive. And I think that we can make a bunch of changes here and make this a place that people want to live and a place where they want to open businesses because they know we're open to that. We welcome that. We can all do that together. Thank you. And I'm sorry I'm missing the question and answer period, but thank you for having me.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you very much, Todd. You know, Leanne Obery is one of our other founders of the GBA, and she has a fond saying. She says, Groton has 3 mayors, the town, the city, and the Navy base. And that's a good segue because the Navy base has a huge influence on our community and also our economy. And that's why we invited Captain Carl Latte here. Captain Carl Latte is a 1989 graduate of the United States Naval Academy and holds graduate degrees in electrical engineering and national security and strategic studies. In addition to many operational assignments, Captain Latte has served as an associate fellow of the Chief of Naval Operations Strategic Studies Group, a division chief on the Joint Staff, and the commanding officer of the ballistic missile submarine USS Nebraska. He is currently the 15th commanding officer of the Naval Submarine Base, New London. Captain?
So it's wonderful to be here this morning. I'll start my stopwatch. Al told me I only have 12 minutes. And he knows I can talk about the submarine base for 12 hours. First of all, I really am humbled to be compared to a mayor. I am nowhere near what Mel Galbraith can do. And I appreciate her selling me electricity.
We appreciate you buying it.
And Rich, every time he sees me, asks me where his torpedo is. So I just can't give those away. We're working on it, though. But no, it's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be in the town of Groton. If you don't know, the sub base spans both the town of Groton and the town of Ledyard. And we get just tremendous support from the community. I think we're the only Navy base in the country where people actually like us outside the gates. And I say that because, one, it's safe. Sailors can walk out of sub base and can walk to Taco Bell and back, and they're safe. As long as they're not drunk and stumbling in the road, which happens occasionally. But no, it's a safe place, and it's a safe place for families, and it's a quiet place. And so, that's something you don't really understand about Navy bases until you go to some place like the Hampton Roads area, where you get mugged on Hampton Boulevard if you walk off the base, or there's a lot of establishments you don't want to visit right off the base. So we really appreciate the local partnerships that we have. So I was asked to talk a little bit about the future of the submarine base. And what I think is that the future of the base is stable for at least the next 20 to 30 years. We're home ported to 15 attack submarines, and that number is going to stay about constant over the next 20 years. That's really about as far as we can predict right now. So I think we're going to have 15 home ported submarines here for a while. And that number is going to be stable. And we also train the submarine force, and submarine school is not going away anytime soon. And so those 2 enduring missions will continue at subbase for a number of decades into the future. And the strategic impact of training the submarine force, I can't underemphasize. We have to keep a steady flow of students going through submarine school to keep our ships around the globe manned on a continuous basis. And if we ever stop that, we could stop it for a month or 2, but if we didn't pick it up again, then we would start to have real problems manning the submarine force out into the future. And of course, the deployment of attack submarines is tremendously important to our nation and continues on an ongoing basis. Recently, USS Pittsburgh just returned from a 6-month deployment, and we have other submarines prepared to deploy later on this year. Earlier this year, I had a high of 13 submarines in port for a while. We had 1 visitor, a long-term visitor, and so my electric bill was very, very high at that point. But I say that because my electric bill actually is totally dependent on how many submarines are in port. I have a standard set load on the base, but then the submarines are their variable load. So at any given time, we've got about $150 million worth of work either recently completed or in progress on the submarine base. And if you look at the military construction authorizations and things, you'll see we don't have any MILCON projects going on right now, but I still have $150 million worth of stuff going on. And a lot of that is small projects on the order of about $1 to $15 million that are doing long-term sustainment of infrastructure on the submarine base. And that long-term sustainment is going to posture the installation to be able to move forward for a number of years, keeping our ability to both train the submarine force and to deploy attack submarines. We've been very involved in energy projects on the submarine base. In the last year, I've had about $37 million worth of projects associated with energy or energy savings. Since 2005, we've achieved over a 30% reduction in our shore energy usage at submarine base. And that's measured in million BTUs per 1,000 square feet. And we've been able to do that largely with demolition of old buildings we didn't need and making a lot of energy efficiency improvements on our other buildings. And so we intend to continue that. You've probably noticed, if you've driven down Route 12, solar panels going into Navy housing. Okay, that is a large-scale solar project. You can't help but see the Solar City trucks driving around, and that's going in fast. That's going to be up within a number of weeks. We'll be turning that live. It's a great partnership with Groton Utilities and CMEC to be able to make that happen. But that's contributing to the Secretary of the Navy's energy initiative. We have to have 500 megawatts either in progress or under contract by the end of the year per Secretary of the Navy mandate, and Subbase in London is contributing to that with the project in housing. We're also looking to move forward with about a 6 megawatt ground-based solar project. We're still working on the details on that, but we think that'll come to fruition. I'm building a microgrid on Subbase, and the Connecticut State Bond Commission recently approved a gift to the Navy of a little over $1 million to design the microgrid. So the solar will feed into the microgrid and create a much more enhanced electrical infrastructure on the submarine base. So we'll look to do a design, take about a year to do design, and then we'll move to construction. And when we get all done, if I lose power from Groton Utilities, which is normally not Groton Utilities' fault, it's normally somebody else's fault. And so like, where do they get power from? If that power goes away, then my electric grid on the base will automatically reconfigure itself to be within the capability of whatever generation they have online. And it's kind of a model project where the state of Connecticut wants to go to keep energy reliability and redundancy throughout the state. And so we're very pleased to be able to partner with the state in that particular area to increase the efficiency and the redundancy of our electric power distribution on the submarine base. And so that project is going to start to move forward later on this year. And we're very happy with the renewables we're able to incorporate. We also have a little over $1 million project for a demonstration for a large-scale storage on subbase. So we're going to stick a giant experimental battery next to a building. And this particular building, I think, is going to be the one with the solar on the roof. And we're going to attempt to take that building mostly off the grid. And if that project is successful, then we'll look to move to a much larger storage-based infrastructure that could feed directly into the microgrid. So if we lose power for a little while, we'll drop down and draw off this large-scale battery. That's a technology that's still emerging, but we're definitely exploring that. And so we're very happy to be able to look at those things. And we have a Secretary of the Navy who's very influential in those areas in pushing that forward. The President spoke at the Coast Guard Academy yesterday about climate change. And I'm not going to talk about politics associated with that, but what I can tell you is it is documented that sea levels are rising and storms are becoming more frequent and more intense. And so as we look to posture subbase going into the future, I think we're well postured because we own high ground. If you go to a number of other, the President actually said this yesterday in his speech. There's a Navy base in Norfolk that has an airfield that floods at a high tide in a big storm. Okay, we don't do that. I mean, that's basically a quote from the President yesterday. That doesn't happen here at Subbase. And so I think we're well postured for the future for potential impacts of climate change, because I do own high ground. And I don't think that we would be looking to give up the high ground anytime soon if you think sea levels are going to rise 1 to 4 feet in the next 75 or 100 years. It's just too hard. If we look at the potential of having to close the naval station at Norfolk, Virginia, we're looking at a tens of billions of dollar necessity to go buy new land at a higher ground somewhere. And I just don't know. We aren't even talking about it now. And so that's something that the Navy strategically is going to have to look for in the future. I would be remiss if I didn't discuss BRAC. I know it's a 4-letter word in the town of Groton, but I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss that with this group. So in August 2005, on August 24th, the BRAC Commission voted to take Subbase New London off the closure list. And I'm going to read some of the things from the final hearing that was said about that. The strategic issue of the number of submarines that we would have in the force as we move forward the next several years, complicated by the threat that was presented to us, threat data that was presented to us on many occasions from other world events that are taking place, particularly in Asia, I find that not only is Subbase New London a first-class facility, as a matter of fact, it's better known as the flagship of the submarine community. That was General Newton and Anthony Principi. The New London submarine base is more than piers and parking spaces for nuclear-powered submarines. It is truly the center of excellence in submarine warfare. The synergy that is brought about by having it co-located with Electric Boat, the proximity of the Undersea Medical Institute, and the other components mentioned, I believe would be very, very difficult to replicate at other locations. The upper base that houses what I consider also the center of excellence in education and training for enlisted officers who will be manning our submarines in the future. It's more than brick and mortar, but truly, truly excellence that I believe will be very difficult to transition to a new site. The emerging regional threats that we face in the world today leaves uncertainty about the force structure of nuclear-powered submarines for the future. If we close New London down, we'll never get it back. And I think it would be a tragic mistake, a tragic loss to this nation if this recommendation were to be approved. So when you look at the budget analysts, it is acknowledged that they made a compelling business case to close New London because of excess infrastructure. But the overall decision to keep it open 10 years ago was based on the strategic uncertainty of the future and the fact that they weren't allowed to consider every submarine home port on the East Coast. And so I think that as we're moving forward, to keep the base viable and sustained for the future, first of all, my job is to keep it open forever because there's no plan to close it right now. And so I have to continuously invest on a day-to-day basis in the infrastructure on the base to make sure I can deploy attack submarines and train the submarine force. We have a great partnership with the state and the local community that support the submarine base. And everything you do for our military families is not unrecognized in that area. From the support that everyone gets here in Groton is just tremendous. And the third thing is that I think we just need to keep beating the drum on how important submarines are in the future and importance that they provide to the nation. And the congressional delegation, I think, does that on a regular basis, which is one of the reasons we're able to buy so many submarines and have them designed and built here at Electric Boat. So Larry will probably talk about Virginia class and Ohio replacement. I don't have to stump that. But if you see your congressman, tell him we need it, because it's very important to the future of the submarine force and the future of the nation. But I think that the submarine base itself is stable for the long term with 15 attack submarines and training the submarine force going into the future. Chief of Naval Operations, Secretary of the Navy has said that we need BRAC, and I agree. We absolutely need another BRAC commission. There's infrastructure within the Department of Defense that is excess, specifically within the Department of the Navy and the Air Force. They have said they want to close about 24% of their facilities within the United States. The Navy thinks we're about right-sized. And I don't think the Navy will close a lot of big facilities in the country. I think we will look to move some stuff around a little bit. You may see some stuff move here. And by October 1st, you may be very happy with some things, depending on what happens. But I don't think we're largely looking to close a lot of infrastructure in the Navy. We've been doing a lot of consolidation over the last 10 or 12 years. So I think BRAC will happen. I can't tell you when. That's a congressional decision. But it has been asked for by the President and Secretary of Defense, and I think for some very compelling reasons to keep our force structure modern. And so I think you'll see it in the future. Do I think New London will be on it? I can't tell you. It's too hard to predict, but I think we have a compelling case for staying open for the long term in the future. And I look forward to any questions you might have about the submarine base. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Obviously, in addition to our operations of submarines here in Groton, we also build them and thus have the distinction of being the submarine capital of the world. Speaking about building submarines, we invited Larry Runkle here. And Larry Runkle is the Director of Maintenance and Modernization of General Dynamics Electric Boat. In this role, he's responsible for all electric boat overhaul, repair, and modernization work performed in Groton and other sites across the country as well, like Kings Bay, Bremerton, San Diego, and Honolulu. So he gets around. Larry joined the Electric Boat Naval Architecture Group in 1984. He held positions of increasing responsibility in engineering organizations, including manager of hull structures for Virginia class. He's a graduate of Penn State with a degree of civil engineering, and he continued his education at UConn, completing program management training at the Defense Management College. So, Larry, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Al, for the introduction and for inviting me to speak today. I think it's fitting that I follow the captain in his discussion regarding the sub-base based on the synergy that we have with him and his command. When Al invited me to speak, I called him the other day and said, all right, I'm ready to go. I've prepared 197 slides. And he said, no. So we're adaptable, and hey, we tend to do everything in a big way at Electric Boat. So what I'd like to do today is walk through our lines of business at Electric Boat, some of our major programs and our recent accomplishments. I'd also like to discuss our business outlook and including some preparations that are underway for long-term growth at Electric Boat. And I'd like to discuss the impact that we have to the local community. In 2014, we had a very good year at Electric Boat. Our sales were about $4.7 billion. Just a few years ago, we were about a $3 billion a year company. We're heading to $5 billion a year in the near future. If I break this down amongst our major lines of business, about 63% of those sales were Virginia-class construction, 28% was associated with our engineering and design business, and 7% were maintenance and modernization, the kind of stuff that I do here in Groton and on the road. We currently have a backlog of 17 ships under construction. And we're working one repair boat in the shipyard right now. Last year, we increased our backlog substantially, and we currently have a backlog of $25 billion worth of work, which is the largest backlog Electric Boat has ever had. Employment levels, currently, we have about 9,100 people that work here in Connecticut. Total in the company is a little over 13,000. So I'd like to walk through each of our major lines of business, starting with Virginia-class construction. April 28th last year, Electric Boat signed a historic agreement, a $17.6 billion contract for 10 Virginia-class Block 4 submarines. That's the largest Navy contract, shipbuilding contract that's ever been signed. This contract is a 5-year, multi-year contract where we co-produce the submarines with Newport News down in Virginia, and this continues a 2 per year build rate through 2018. This backlog affords us much flexibility going forward, and it gives us a steady outlook, which I'll talk about later, what that means to employment levels and our future outlook. Last year, we also delivered the North Dakota. The North Dakota was the first of the Block 3 ships. Now, Virginia-class ships are procured in blocks. Blocks 1 and 2 are already completed. Block 3 contract is under construction. Block 4 was the contract that I just talked about that was awarded last year. So the Block 3 ships that were awarded, including North Dakota, included a bow redesign, which put 2 large diameter payload tubes up in the bow and included a new sonar system. So last year, despite a 20% ship redesign for the new design features to improve capability of the ships, and a late material a vendor material issue that we had to come through, we still delivered this ship 2 days ahead of schedule and more than $30 million under budget. The ship performed exceedingly well on sea trials and achieved the highest in-serve score to date on a Virginia-class submarine. So we continue to meet our target cost and beat our target cost, improve on schedules and deliver ahead of schedule, and deliver the ships with improving quality ship after ship. The North Dakota was commissioned October 25th at the Captain's Subbase, and our program is considered, the Virginia-class program is considered the benchmark for all DoD programs for a standard of excellence. The pace of Virginia-class construction continues to accelerate. This year, we held the keel laying ceremony on the Colorado, the 788 boat. The ship's sponsor was Annie Mabus, daughter of the SUCNAV. Her father, Ray Mabus, the Secretary of the Navy, was the principal speaker. The delivery of the John Warner, the 785 boat coming out of Newport News, is expected next month, and that ship set to sea this morning on trials. The next boat that we expect to deliver, combined coming out of Groton, is the Illinois, the 786 boat. We had the pleasure of hosting the First Lady, Michelle Obama, at the keel laying last year in the summer. The event was a great opportunity to showcase to the country the talent, the company's talent on a national stage. The First Lady was very gracious and she was very pleased to be a host as the ship's sponsor. Our goal is to continue our trend of under cost and ahead of scheduled deliveries on the Virginia-class program. We plan on achieving float off later this summer on the USS Illinois, and we expect that we're going to deliver her early next year, once again ahead of schedule. The christening for the Illinois will involve the First Lady, and that event is expected to happen October of this year. Moving on to our second major line of business, design and engineering programs, I'd like to talk a little bit about Virginia payload module design. We're working on a plan to modify the Virginia-class submarine to add an 85-foot hull section, and that includes 4 large diameter tubes, payload tubes, that'll go in the center of the ship. In essence, this design and this platform will become a replacement for the SSGN class ships that will be coming offline middle of next decade. The hull section is known as the Virginia Payload Module. It'll be used for precision strike with Tomahawk cruise missiles. We'll add 28 more Tomahawk missiles, increase the strike capability from 12 missiles to 40 for each submarine. The timing of this change is expected to go into the next block of Virginia-class submarines to be procured, Block 5, and they're expected to start construction in 2019. This year, Congress authorized about $120 million to continue the design effort. The total design effort could range $700 to $800 million. We expect FY16 funding a little north of $160 million to support the continued design program. What we've been working on to date, we've completed concept studies. We're into the detailed requirements and working out the detailed plan and schedule to both design and build the modules. We've ramped up the design team here in Groton and New London that are working on this boat. We've got about 400 people on board working on this design right now. We expect to add about 150 more folks later this year to that design team. The next major design program and kind of the future for the company is the Ohio Replacement Program. The Navy's #1 priority is the Ohio Replacement. It's a new class of ballistic missile submarines, the SSBNs, and we're currently working the design effort. The SSBN is sea-based and the only survivable leg of the nuclear triad, and that's because of the ship's stealth. No one can find them, so there's assured capability to strike back if needed. The Ohio-class SSBNs, the current SSBNs will come out of service at a rate of about one a year, starting in 2027, which is when we have to have the new design built and online. The lead Ohio replacement needs to start its first patrol in 2031. That sounds like a long time away when you start backing up the timeline to get the design done, get the construction done. It's ongoing right now. The fiscal 15 budget to support this program is $1.2 billion. The FY 16 budget is about $1.4 billion, and we would encourage you to keep encouraging your representatives to fund the program and keep it on track, because there's no more margin for delay. The Ohio class ships are reaching their end of life. They've been extended to 40 years from an initial design of a 30-year life, and they're going to have to start coming offline. The Ohio replacement program is currently moving at a fast pace. We currently have 2,900 people working on the design effort. We've accomplished a lot over the last year. Systems engineering, system arrangements are in progress. Components for the ship's new electric drive propulsion system are under development, and we're out beginning procurement. The Ohio replacement team is challenged to keep the program on track and to support our schedule and the schedule of our partner, the United Kingdom. We must complete the design work this year in order to support construction of the missile compartment components needed to maintain the schedule for the UK's successor program. We're building a common missile compartment, and their missile compartment is actually needed first, the way the schedule works out. The U.S. program hinges on maintaining a strong pace of design completion in order to support the construction start, and we're planning on delivering the first ship in less time than it took us to deliver the lead Virginia class ship. So we have a very aggressive program. The third line of business is maintenance and modernization, kind of the work I do, and we have a very strong partnership with Captain Leahy and his team. Last year we were very busy, completed 4 major availabilities in Groton. We currently have 1 availability going this year, expect 1 more later this year. Our repair work has dropped off in 2015, but we're competing for additional repair work. We've submitted proposals for 2 availabilities that would start in 2016-2017 timeframe. We're also working on a moored training ship. We've completed the design for a moored training ship, which is basically the training pipeline for nuclear sailors coming out of the Navy. Our design work is complete. We're doing the manufacture work now, and we expect that we're going to help Norfolk do the installation work. That work is being done down at Norfolk Naval Shipyard. Business outlook and our impact locally. As I said, we currently employ about 13,000 people. Last year, we hired over 1,700 people. We did have attrition of about 1,000 folks. Roughly half of that was retirements. Our workforce is somewhat aging. As we're currently hiring this year, we expect to hire at least 1,300 people this year. Our workload going forward shows a steady demand across our major programs in the near term up through 2019. 2019 and beyond, we expect growth, and that's being driven by the Virginia payload module construction and Ohio replacement construction. Down on the waterfront, I do expect that we're going to continue to see cyclical workload, but not as major in swings as we've seen in recent years. In addition to the people that we employ, we have over 470 suppliers from Connecticut, and we've placed orders of almost $600 million in the last 5 years to the local suppliers. In Groton, you may have noticed some changes in the landscape recently. We continue to take down older buildings. The largest of which was our old nuclear engineering building that was recently raised. We plan to continue to adjust our footprint going forward. We're also going to continue to make capital investments going forward, and by the end of the decade, you should start to see some investment and some changes down on our final assembly line down on the waterfront. We also recently purchased the old Caldor building, and we're going to start renovation work very soon over there. We'll be moving a lot of our design engineering force into that building. Safety, health, and wellness of our people is not only a priority, it's a business imperative for us. Safety is our #1 priority, and we work hard on reducing our injury rates and lost work days. Our company continues to offer multiple wellness programs. We have a local prescription program. These programs are provided at no cost to our employees, and we're encouraging a healthy lifestyle to keep our employees safe and to maintain their health and control our healthcare costs. I'm proud to report that Electric Boat collected well over $2 million for local charities in 2014 through our Community Service Association. And our employees continue to put in countless hours around the local community, donating their time as well as their money to help local charities. To wrap it up, we continue to be focused on our backlog and keep improving on the Virginia class program. We have a very healthy outlook and future through both our design business and our construction business, and we look to be a continued partner for the community. With that, thank you.
Wow, thank you, Larry. A lot going on over there. What we want to do now is kind of jump to the middle ground of Groton. That's where a lot of our zoning is for industrial expansion, if you will. So what we want to do is bring in someone that's been a success in starting a company and growing a company in Groton, and that would be Peter Legnos. He's the founder and president of LBI Inc., an engineering and manufacturing company established in 1971. They're located on North Road, which would be 117, just a little bit below 184. Their early works, and I think our marina folks may know this, their early works in boat building were the Mystic Cat boat, the Mystic 30, Mystic 10-3, Mystic 15, Haypenny sloop, and the Legnos 35. So those are they're still around, by the way. You can Google that. Then Peter got a little more technical, and he went on to develop a line of polymer adhesives, coatings, and syntactic compounds, real high-tech stuff. But most recently, you might have read this in the news, in 2013, he designed a new deep draft camel separator. Those are used to moor all the classes of submarines, and he won a 5-year Navy contract to manufacture them for the U.S. naval bases, both in the U.S. and abroad. And what I know about him, in addition to being a very successful businessman and making it in Groton, he's also a real giver, gives a lot of his time to the town of Groton, to EDC. So, Peter, please.
Thank you. Yes, we, in our recent expansion, we found that over all the years I've been in that industrial park, which has been since we moved in there in 1974, that the interface with the town in terms of economic development and the processes improved greatly. You know, it's way different than it used to be. And you know, to Todd Brady, when he was up here earlier, was talking about that we need to fix the process. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think you've got great people, professionals in this town, the planning director, people like Kristen, who have done a really good job, but they need more tools. They need all of you to speak up. That's very, very important going forward. Since 2008, I think we've lost about 8,000 jobs in southeastern Connecticut, something like that, is that? And about 4,000 in Groton. Now, we're very fortunate to have the sub-base and EB as great anchors for this, but the small business side and the industrial park that I'm in has had very little development since I moved in there in 1974, so it wasn't exactly last week. I actually started the business when I was 2, so. Anyway, and we also refer to us as the second largest boat builder in Groton. Anyway, it's really not rocket science. We do need to build our tax base. There's no question about that. I think it's time that we, there's an old saying, half measures avail us nothing. And this is a great time to look at that and get on board to make some real efforts to create the things that the town needs from the regulatory. They've got to promote business and they've got to regulate it at the same time. So they're going to need the tools and the support to do that. And I don't think we can wait too long. If you look at the other places like the state of New York, they're very aggressive about bringing business in. We are not. We're only halfway there. You don't have to give away the store. You really can do this by making it faster and efficient. We got to be the fastest and most efficient in our area if we're going to make this happen. And I think that's really the message that we need to promote. Entrepreneurs and small business people create right now the most jobs. If you look at some of from 2008 till now, that large businesses, as soon as they can, will outsource. They'll go foreign. They've pushed about 2.9 million jobs foreign, and that's that they can do that. Fortunately, Electric Boat has to be here, so they can't do that. So I like that big business. But on the other side, and they also give us a lot of work. So thank you. A little bit of allergies here today. Yeah, the entrepreneurs are the risk takers. They actually produce 14 times the patents per employee that large businesses do, believe it or not. And big businesses can't really risk that much. So that small segment of our base really needs to be worked on. There's no question about it. That one of the things that's missing is that is infrastructure, and everybody's talked about this for years. If we don't invest some money in infrastructure, you're not going to get people to develop businesses and manufacturing and companies like this. I think that even people in the town I've never heard this before, but recently I'm hearing from people in town government saying, maybe we ought to buy that land on Route 117 and put some roads and some infrastructure in so that we can develop it and get the tax base. Because I've been there almost 2 generations, and we've got the Marriott and Paheganut Road down by the highway, and that's it. And there's a lot of open land there that's easily accessible to the highway. And I think it's really time that we work to get that going. So I think it's important that we again, I'm going to say it again, that we need to support and create something for our people that work in the town, and perhaps hire more people to make this happen, because we are competing with everybody. We have a problem there. Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, let's look a little bit at the numbers here since 2009, small businesses created 67% of the new jobs. Pretty big number. And of the people who are unemployed, there are now a lot of self-employed one-person companies. That's the biggest increase that there is today. So you got a ton of new business, but they're one person because they couldn't get a job. So that's a group that we don't do anything about. We don't talk to them. We don't support them. And I think it's important that we take these small initiatives and make it part of our economic development plan. We need to work on the regulations. There is a true lack of financing, but part of the lack of financing is it takes so long to get anything done, people are afraid to finance it. I mean, the banks are very skittish about helping some of these small business efforts to move forward. You know, and the things that we have really going for us now are the airport development zone is a huge opportunity, but we need to go at that again, not with a half measure. We have to go at it full bore and make something happen. I think that the planning department has really got the energy and the vitality to help make that happen. But we do, again, streamline the process, create the infrastructure. We also have to look at we have structural problems in this town that are in the news all the time. And when, things like, I was on the Fire District Commission in Pequannock Bridge, and I'm sure you've all read about that, what a debacle that's been. But we have 9 fire districts in town with 34 fire engines, Do we really need all that? Do we need to really pay for all that? So we need to fix our structural problems, because anybody coming in here is going to look at that and say, do I really want to get involved with that? That's a big, big question that we need to work with. So again, let's see if we can all speak up and help fix that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Before introducing our next guest, I want to recognize State Senator Andre Baumgartner. Representative. Excuse me, State Representative. Thank you for showing up. Just by a show of hands, last September, who took the water taxi across the river? Okay, quite a few of you. That event could potentially have be a huge economic catalyst for Groton, and thus we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the water taxi and the ensuing Thames River Heritage Park, and that's why we invited Penny Parsikian. Penny is a consultant who specializes in nonprofit organizational development and neighborhood revitalization. Her firm is Street Smart, and she's provided consulting to City of Providence and New London. She was a founding member of the New London Main Street program, served as executive director of the organization from 2000 to 2006, and its CEO from 2006 to 2012. She's been a freelance writer of science and history for the National Geographic Society and others. And she's also written feature articles for the New York Times, Brown Alumni Monthly, and other magazines. She holds a BA from Lake Erie College, master's degree from Brown University, and has attended New York University's MBA program. But most recently, she's been retained by the Avery Kopp Museum to help resurrect this whole Thames River Heritage Park thing, which will allow her to fully explain. Penny.
Thank you, Al. This is such an energized group. I'm very, very impressed. I'm going to cover 3 areas in my 10 to 12 minutes. Sort of a brief overview and background of the Thames River Heritage Park, what the impact on Groton could be, and where we are right now, a status update. How many of you are familiar with the Thames River Heritage Park project at all? Okay, a good number, because this is not a conventional park with fixed boundaries. It's almost esoteric to think about it. It's a framework that draws together heritage and contemporary sites, neighborhoods, commercial districts, and institutions on both sides of the river. And it does this by coordinating signs, graphics, information, kiosks, website, mobile apps, open schedules, the same open hours for all the heritage sites, and programming. So it's a really in some ways a modern concept for a park. And there's none other like it in the state of Connecticut. We would be the first. This park would have 4 anchor sites that are connected by water taxi. Fort Trumbull, Fort Griswold, the Nautilus, and the new Coast Guard Museum. So we have the attractions we need to make this something extraordinary. Now, the background on this concept was conceived, put it that way, 35 years ago. So it's not new. It was funded, and this was so in the 80s. It was funded and planned and designated in the 1990s as a state park. In the 2000s, it received more funding and was implemented. How many of you knew this park was implemented? The floating docks were installed, a park was built in Groton, and a number of other features, and then it stalled. We don't hear about things that stall very often. No one wants to admit it, but that's what happened. So in 2012, the Avery Cop House, in seeking to increase its visitation and have more impact on the region, hired the Yale Urban Design Workshop, which is a nonprofit urban design firm affiliated with Yale University, to see if the Heritage Park was a way to accomplish their objectives. What Yale did over the last 2 years in studying this park and creating an updating plan is they realized that this park wouldn't just help meet the Avery Cop House's objectives. It could be the catalyst that would spur economic growth in the whole region. So there's a lot of potential here. So that's the background and the overview. What would be the impact on Groton of this? Well, first and foremost would be increased tourism, not only in quantity, but in the duration of the visitors to the area, which would increase demand for hotels, retail, and other affiliated businesses. During our water taxi demonstration that Al mentioned, I was surprised that so few of you rode, because we counted 4,000 passenger rides on that ferry over 2 weekends. It was an incredible draw for very little marketing. It was beyond our expectations. And the impact was rather astounding. I mean, businesses on Thames Street in Groton quadrupled their sales. The Avery Cop House had 400 people visit in one afternoon. This is unprecedented. So we're not speculating here about impact. We really did a test that showed what this could do. Quality of life is a second area that would improve. Better river access, more recreational opportunities. And so it would make the region more vivid and attractive, which would be used then for marketing the area. The park infrastructure contracts would be fairly substantial, especially up front. Signage, parking lot enhancement, ferry service. The heritage sites would need to staff up, and that would be jobs. So the economic impact is pretty significant, but also the park provides a way to address some of the economic challenges facing this region, which are declining local, state, and federal funding, declining visitation to the heritage sites, lack of cohesive image, and disconnected regional assets. If you have ever tried to direct somebody from Fort Griswold to Fort Trumbull, good luck. Tell them to swim. I mean, it's impossible. So the park provides a strategy for addressing these challenges, as well as stimulating investment the way any compelling plan does, by instilling confidence that the region is organized for thoughtful growth. Any developer, and I'm sorry the first gentleman had to leave, will tell you that's what they're looking for. So what's the current status? Where are we right now? Yale completed their report in January. They presented it to a packed audience at the Groton, City of Groton Municipal Building on April 1st. And they presented a streamlined strategy for completing the implementation of this park. About 39 stakeholders have signed onto the park, including the municipalities on both sides of the river. The Southeastern Connecticut Legislative Delegation has signed on to the project, and DEEP, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection at the state level, wants to proceed. The Park Steering Committee is forming a transition team to do the groundwork for creating a new nonprofit to support the state and the state efforts. So we're putting in place the leadership to carry this forward. We're planning to submit an urban action grant that will help us complete phase 1 of park infrastructure, which is primarily signage and water taxi infrastructure. And Mayor Galbraith is spearheading the effort to get the water taxi running as quickly as possible. She and economic development specialist Kristen Avrilla Clark are really providing a terrific push for this project. The Yale report, under its principal recommendations, has a job for everyone in this room to do. And I strongly urge you to go to the Avery Cophouse website, scroll down to the bottom right-hand corner, and click on the report. It's very readable. And it'll give you a lot of ideas about how you can participate. So a lot of momentum has been created, but there'll be a lot to do once the new nonprofit is formed. So I hope you're excited about this and will stay with us as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Am I on?
Yes, you were.
We're going to move over to our Q&A session. So we've got our panelists hanging out here to answer your questions. So anybody want to kick it off? Anyone? Lorraine?
Yes, to the captain. What's going into the old commissary building?
That's a great question. Yeah, all right, I'll just talk loud. The old commissary building on the first floor of the Navy Exchange is going to become an expanded Navy Exchange. So we've been delayed in contracting due to some internal Department of Defense issues between Navy Exchange Command and the Defense Commissary Agency. We're working through resolving those, and then you'll have a renovated and expanded Navy Exchange. So that's what's going in there.
Thank you.
Please.
I'm Genevieve Circum on the Town Council of Groton. So I have a question actually which all of you can answer. What are the unmentionable things that we talk about sometimes when we're talking about rejuvenating downtown Groton, which is one of my pet projects, and Thames Street, downtown Thames Street, I love. And now that the water taxi is there, I often drive through and I look around and I see this amazing mix of, traditional classics or historic things, and then this really heavy-duty industrial presence that we have. I play golf in Shenectah, it's the same thing. Shenectah is a beautiful golf course, and then I look around and I see all these, huge industrial-like buildings. And I'm wondering if you've given any thought, and perhaps this is something we can work with Penny, to, if you have to repaint a building, repaint one of your big industrial buildings, a softer color, a nicer light. I mean, not, battleship gray. We need the battleships. I now understand after listening to the two of you how important the work that you do is, and I can see that probably the aesthetic part of your building and maintenance is probably very low on the list of things that are important. But to us, I think it would make a big difference if you gave it a little bit of thought in the future.
Okay.
Is there any chance of that? Yes?
So I can comment on it. For sub-base, we actually are concerned with what the exterior of the building is. So our general structure is brick. So you're likely to see most of our buildings are brick or a light color.
Actually, I've been there, and the sub-base really looks nice, actually. I think it's a lot of the rest of the mix that I think needs to be looked at.
I think she's talking about us.
Well, so EV doesn't want to seafoam green buildings.
So I understand the comment, and as we do our investment in renovation down on building 260, the big green building, I'll take that back.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that the Yale report has a lot of recommendations for Thames Street, that I just can't spew off, but they're very, very good and practical. And I think one of the primary things is that when people find out, when investors find out that the town and the area embraces the concept, they will start showing up and wanting to be part of it. So, and then, of course, the process will kick in to make sure that it does meet the public's wishes and also hopefully is streamlined enough that the investor stays on board.
Let me just say, Peter is doesn't have a problem because he has the most beautiful castle in front of him.
There you go, yeah, yeah.
That takes care of his aesthetics.
Anybody else? Actually, Captain, I have a quick question. Listening to your report, you do a lot of training on the base. Are these trainees sequestered on the base, or do they go out and venture out and spend, if you will, into the community?
So our new submarine school students are trapped for about 4 weeks. Trapped is a bad way, but they can leave the base for 4 weeks. And then they are allowed to leave, and they do go out into the community. And if you've been along the Route 12 corridor, you've seen them walking back and forth. To bring up the Thames Street, if you want sailors to go, I need stuff that young men in their early 20s want to go to. So I need restaurants and bars and places where girls in their early 20s go.
All right, all you girls in your 20s, we want to go to Thames Street, all right? You had a question back there? Anybody have their, please?
I had one comment. Brendan Mulrich and John Halka with the Sandbox, and I also work for another company in town here called Applied Physical Sciences. We went to the Community Economic Development Fund event last night. A few of us did up in Norwich, and I just want to say they did a really good job advertising the economic development in the town of Norwich and why businesses should go to town of Norwich, and bringing together banks, utilities, and other organizations. I learned a lot as someone who's been in business for a few years and is looking to expand my business in Groton. It was a neat one-stop shop, and I would say, I'm not sure if there's the same forum in Groton that there is in Norwich. I would hope there is, and if not, I would hope there is something to be developed like the event last night. Business Resource Roundup, it was called.
Peter, is that something you could feel?
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that we should really be doing, because we just don't really reach out to those people we don't even know about. If we create events, they may come to the events, you'll find out who they are. There's a lot of one company, one-person companies. I mean, I grew up down the street from Jack Horner. He was one of the 2 people that started Prattwood. He was an old man when I was a kid. They started in a garage, you know. So did Apple. You know, I mean, you know, we really, when small business does create 67% of all the new jobs, and you know, you guys have created it, not enough to make up for the 4,000 we lost, right? So we need to make it a joint effort all the way around. But yet that outreach is huge.
It was huge. We learned a lot last night.
Anyone else out there? Please.
Hi, yes. My name's George King. I'm the newly appointed director of the Mystic Arts Center, which is an organization that's been around for 101 years. I'm not 101 years old, but I just want to let everybody here know that I took this job. I'm from New York City, and I moved here because I think this is a fantastic area, a wonderful place to run a not-for-profit educational organization. And just to let you know that I will be in touch with all of you, and you'll be hearing a lot more about what the Mystic Arts Center is going to do in the future. So I hope in the meantime you come to visit, and I thank the panelists.
Great, thank you. Actually, Penny, could you give repeat the status of the water taxi for 2015, where that's heading, or is it heading?
Marion might be able to talk about that. It's a very complex situation. We have money possibilities here, but it can't be spent with the options that we have. We have captains, licensed captains who are ready to go and no boat. It's just like, Marion, do you have anything to add?
Although we're still exploring possibilities for this year, we think our stronger possibilities are for 2016.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Would that be right, Kristen? Oh, Kristen, okay. But we are still looking at what we can possibly put together for later this summer. But again, we think that we could have a stronger, more professional plan for 2016.
every week there's a new option comes on board. Recently, a New York a water taxi operator lost some of his territory. And so we had a conference call with them this week to find out what their interest might be in coming up here. They're gonna put together a proposal. So it's always something that we're excited about, but I think Marion's a pragmatic, a realist, and she's looking to. I just wanted to say one thing about the base, and that is that the Avery Cop House has recently developed a relationship with the Dolphin, which is a great little vehicle for communicating with the base.
It's our base newspaper.
About what we do, and we've suddenly had this wonderful influx of Navy people to the Avery Cop House because they're not just interested in girls and bars. They're interested in history, as is Captain Lockheed, by the way. And so, it's been a phenomenal connection, and I highly recommend it.
Anyone else up there? Please,
Did you mention
Genevieve.
that we're having a kickoff meeting for the economic, the John Reiner and Kristen's plans for the, council's plan also for the marketing analysis and zoning regs for the future next Wednesday, is it, Kristen? She's not here? I think it's next Wednesday night at
Okay.
6 o'clock or something.
Right.
It's a shame that I don't have it in my phone, but I forgot to put it in there.
That's that study Peter alluded to, that the town retained outside consultants to come in, and they're gonna have focus groups to get feedback from the community, where they think the needs are, and they'll synthesize all that in their reports.
All my open space friends will be there advocating for open space. So, but I'm one of these open space people who knows we need business in this town so that we can afford to have open space. And we need you people from the business community to come and weigh in on how to get a good balance in these two things. And so it really would be good if you could show up there. We really need your work.
And Larry, you'd mentioned in your talk, you have a lot of vendors supplying parts and what have you to EB. Are many of them located in our local region here, or are they coming from way out there?
Just within Connecticut, get some stats for you.
Order of magnitude.
Yeah. 471 vendors within Connecticut. Locally, within District 2, about 176 suppliers within our local district.
Very good, very good.
And we use Peter's camels. I can tell that they're very good. It's a very good. You'd never notice it if you know what you're looking for. It's a very good product.
Peter, can you describe what a camel is? I tried to Google it, and I'm still confused.
Well, it's a steel structure that floats between the submarine and the pier, and the maximum width of the submarine or beam is way underwater. So all the fendering has to be underwater, and it has to not mess up the sonar arrays. There's all kinds of stuff on the outside of the submarine. So the ones we just delivered this week to Portsmouth held the ship about 21 feet off the pier, and they're about 20 feet deep. And it's only just the top of it floats out of the water. It has to float perfectly, within a degree, and it protects the submarine and its basically sonar system at the dock. Not a big deal. They're made out of steel tube that is 3 foot in diameter down to 16 inch, and they weigh nominally about, the ones we just delivered were 41,000 pounds.
Okay, no questions? That's a wrap. I want to thank our panelists once again. And we'll see you June 18th at Pine Island Marina for our next meeting. Thank you.